Campbell gave me a religious sense of life back. He showed how the old stories and the modern imagination, movies, whatever we look at, has patterns. He taught what you might call a picture language, how to understand the symbols of everyday life as representing something beyond themselves, as alluding to invisible worlds. Whether we think of that as spiritual or psychological isn't as important as that we have some kind of openness to it, that we know more than we know that we know. I am attracted to the poets, the writers, and the artists, and Joseph Campbell thought they would be able to see the future. They were the best guides to what has not yet happened, what others do not yet see. Is America a great country because of political leaders like Lincoln? Sure. But actually our consciousness, our personality is more shaped by Mark Twain and Emily Dickinson and the great painters and the great dramatists, Eugene O'Neill. They will give us the inner life that will be necessary to become who we might be able to become. One thing studying myth will do is make us aware that nothing is entirely new, that any experience we have been facing is something that has happened to others and they have struggled with and they have left clues. So mythology helps us get through everyday challenges. We can
Today I'm gonna shine. I can get through this amazing type of day. Possibilities are endless. Come and relax, chilling in LA. I'm beautiful on the inside and out. My voice matters. Love to the universe. Love to the universe. Smart, take a deep breath. Success, I am blessed. Thankful for another day. Feeling so much happiness. Everything is for my higher good. I smile in the hood. Positivity. Creativity. Love you. All of my dreams come true. No matter what I do, I am everything. I am you. Today I'm gonna shine. I can get through this amazing type of day. Possibilities endless. Calm and relax. Chilling in LA. I'm beautiful on the inside and out. My voice matters. Love to the universe. Love to the universe. Smart, take a deep breath. Success, I am blessed. Thankful for another day. Feeling so much happiness. Everything is for my higher good. I smile in the hood. Positivity. Creativity. Love you. All of my dreams come true. No matter what I do, I am everything. I am you. Today I'm gonna shine. I can get through this amazing type of day. Possibility. Possibilities are endless, calm and relax, chilling in the lane. I'm beautiful on the inside and out. My voice matters. Love to the universe. Love to the universe. Take a deep breath. Success, I am blessed. Thankful for another day. Feeling so much happiness. Everything is for my higher good. I smile in the hood. Positivity, creativity. Love you. All my dreams come true. No matter what I do, I am everything. I am you. Today I'm gonna shine. I can get through this. Amazing type of day. Possibilities are endless. Calm and relax. Chilling in the lane. Beautiful on the inside and out. My voice matters. Love to the universe. Love to the universe. Smart, take a deep breath. Success, I am blessed. Thankful for another day. Feeling so much happiness. Everything is for my higher good. I smile in the hood. Positivity. Creativity. Love you. All my dreams come true. No matter what I do, I am everything. I am you. Today I'm gonna shine. I can get through this amazing type of day. Possibilities are endless, calm and relax, chilling in the lane. I'm beautiful on the inside and out. My voice matters. Love to the universe. Love to the universe. Smart, take a deep breath. I like to watch this guy to feel good about myself. Feeling so much happiness. Everything is for my higher good. I smile in the hood. Positivity. Creativity. Love you. All of my dreams come true. No matter what I do, I'm
and see the guidance that has been left to us from those who came this way before. And it is interpreted primarily through imagery. A picture carries 1,000 words, and if we can study what the pictures in old stories, dreams, movies, culture at any time, what the images are telling us, we can understand things on deeper levels. Joseph Campbell had a best-selling book in 1949 called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. That is to say, stories are similar over time and in different cultures, and there is one main story, the monomyth, that is told again and again. It's essentially a journey story, a quest. When you diagram the hero's journey, it's customarily depicted as a circle. You start at the top. A calling takes you away from the ordinary, and there is a
demon-haunted world. I'm so grateful. Money comes to me and raising quantities through multiple sources, continuous basis. I am so happy. I am so grateful. Multiple sources, continuous. I'm so happy. I'm so grateful. Money comes to me. Increasing quantities. Multiple sources. Continuous basis. I'm so happy. I'm so grateful. Money comes to me. Increasing quantities. Multiple sources. Continuous basis. I am so happy and grateful now that money comes to me in increasing quantities through multiple sources on a continuous basis. I am so happy and grateful now that money comes to me in increasing quantities through multiple sources on a continuous basis. I am so happy. I am so grateful. Money comes to me and increasing quantities through multiple sources, continuous basis. I am so happy. in the end, increasing quantities through multiple sources, continuous basis. I am so happy, I am so grateful. Multiple source, continuous. I'm so happy, I'm so grateful. Money comes to me, increasing quantities. Multiple sources, continuous basis. I'm so happy, I'm so grateful. Money comes to me, increasing quantities. Multiple sources, continuous basis.
You cross a threshold into a place you have not been before. There are companions, allies, mentors, and opponents. There are ordeals. There is a good deal of suffering. At the bottom, the nadir, the dark night of the soul, it gets really hard. There is a death and rebirth experience. The redemption is the rising up the other side of the circle, and there are several lessons to be learned on the way back. Finally, a return threshold crossing when you re-enter the place you left, but you are changed forever. When there are difficult times, it might be a vocational moment. It could be that trouble is calling us to a change. If we don't have trouble, there is no reason to learn anything. We can stay in our comfort zone. But when things get difficult, we might have to stretch and find new ways of looking at things. So what Joseph Campbell referred to as the calling is usually bad news. Something goes wrong. In a person's life, it's a divorce or a financial setback or an illness. In a collective, a community life, it's a natural disaster or a political shift or a financial crisis of some kind. Something happens that makes us start again, and we have to go looking for new answers. So that is possibly what we have in difficult times, a calling to go learn something new. It could be that these moments, and there is upheaval in so many ways in the world right now, it could be that this is a turning point, a calling, that we are being drawn over a threshold into a new way of looking at things. That would be a positive reading of contemporary events. In the Old Testament, Samuel was a boy that was given up to God. That is, his mother wanted him to be a priest. To study the priesthood, you went to the temple and studied with the high priest. And so this boy was a servant, but also a student of the priest. One night, Samuel heard his name, Samuel. So he ran in to ask what the old man needed, and this old man said, I didn't call you, go back to bed. The voice comes again, Samuel. The boy goes in, what is it? Oh, no, I didn't call you, go to bed. The third time, these things always seem to happen in threes, Samuel, and he comes in, and I'm imagining the old priest is still awake from the last time, but he said, I see that you are hearing your name, but I am not calling you. God is calling you, go pray. This is vocation. This is the calling, the thing that pulls us away from the familiar and pulls us into development, into becoming what we might be. So there is a leaving. In the story, he leaves his mother. In our lives, we leave the crib. We leave the maternal. We leave the goddess, the original divine oneness that we experienced as infants. Collectively, well, in history, there were times when the sacred, saturated community life, everybody believed and everything was sacred, and we came to a more instrumental, practical, technological way of thinking about things, and that is progress. But something was lost. So we go off into new learning, and we find powers, and we gain access to mysteries, and we survive this. We come back wiser for our trouble, older and wiser, and we make a new life for ourselves and for the community. And then there is the question of what was lost, what it costs, and we need to revisit how we have lost balance at times and need to regain that. There is the call to adventure, and there are great historical figures. Joan of Arc heard voices and went out and changed history. Florence Nightingale was touched. Her heart was moved by the suffering on the battlefield, and she proceeded to invent the discipline of nursing, and many lives were saved. Rosa Parks wanted to sit down on a bus and change history in her area, in her time. Marie Curie was a scientist. She was interested in new things, and her discoveries, which cost her her life, have given us things of great value. So we have many examples of those who heard something that had not yet happened and brought it into being. This is how history is changed. The word adventure sounds bold, and the quest is very demanding. It requires a great deal of courage. There is much warrior language that is used, but very seldom are these journeys about going off to war. They're maybe fighting with our demons or struggling to free ourselves from old thinking. But boldness of one kind or another, whether it is physical strength or more often moral courage, that is the ability to stand up to the criticism of others, the doubts of others, and our own doubts in order to step into the new. That is the warrior stance, which we often use masculine language for, but it's not at all unique to men. We both need this, as we both need the tender and the creative, the poetic, the delicate, what we often associate with women. But yes, at times of crisis, we need to take the stance, the seeker's stance, that I must go, I must find what needs to be known. We tend to cling to our innocence, which is a kind of ignorance, really. It's sort of lovely, but it's very limited. So when faced with a big adventure, a new learning experience, we often have reluctance. Joseph Campbell did not criticize the seeker for hesitation. He thought that was actually an important stage in the overall success of the quest. It's preparatory, it's dress rehearsal, it's a pilot study if you're doing science. These are important moments. In history, collectively, we seem to learn the same lessons again and again. The call comes again and again. We blow it. We set up international peacemaking bodies and then don't fund them. I mean, we have these mistakes that seem to reappear, and they often have to do with an attachment to innocence, an attachment to an old way of looking at something, and a mistrust of the possibility that we could do things an entirely new way, that we might be able to cooperate with others. Often the shift of thinking, it has to do with developmental psychology. Simple thinking is very black and white. There's us and them, there's male and female, there's night and day, there's good and bad. There are the good guys and the bad guys. That kind of thinking is very limited. It kind of sounds coherent, but if you look closely, things in reality are seldom that tidy. And the advance, the big leap forward, is to find a way to bridge what seems opposite. In international affairs, that's the work of peacekeepers. In our personal lives, it's to get over ways we seem divided. We seem to have an angel on one shoulder, a devil on the other. To get all of our energies cooperating and pulling together in the same story. In the Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens, there is a junk collector. She's very good at treasure finding. That is, she's taking equipment off of old wrecked spaceships and things. And something happens where she gets involved in bold action that is far beyond her station. There is a moment in that story where a mentor figure, Maz Kanat, I think I'm saying it right, shows her some things in the basement. She does not want to know them. It is frightening when our destiny is obvious because it seems larger than we can handle. It will involve integration. If a person has identified with the delicate and sensitive, it will require discovering the bold. If a person has been bold their whole life, they might have to go find their poetic side, because we will need all of our energies to accomplish the task. In the initiatory adventure, there are terrifying moments. You will cross a threshold or through a portal or a doorway of some kind, and there will be what is in the stories called a threshold guardian. This is a monster of some kind who is telling you to turn back. In the Odyssey, it was a great towering figure with one eye who was ready to eat you alive. So if we make progress through history, it will always be a dicey business. There will be a very risky experience, at least from time to time. There will be great wars. So much of the challenge of human history has to do with crowding. The shift from the matriarchal to the patriarchal probably had to do with increased population. It's easy to get along if there's a lot of space between us. As we start sharing resources and they become more scarce, water and things like that, then we begin setting up boundaries and fighting over them. So the big challenge coming up is, again, increased crowding. How will we live well together if we were packed in big cities that go on forever? All good stories have allies, lots of them. Tom Sawyer has Huckleberry Finn. The Little Women are a group. It seems like our lives are solitary adventures, that the hero's journey refers to one seeker or traveler, but in fact, these things are done in groups. The stories of the Knights of the Round Table are groups of knights going out to solve problems and be of service. So we need to be good team players, and we will find them at moments of difficulty. That is, when you're studying for a final, that's when you make your best friend for life in college or high school, because it's a shared crisis and you have a shared enemy, the teacher. So we rise together and we work well together. The fantasy of individual identity is a huge problem to overcome. The innermost cave is our own fear, that is, individually, the things that go bump in the night deep inside of each of us. Collectively, the innermost cave would be the unknown, and we are constantly facing the unknown, and it seems like history is speeding up, so we're facing it more often. And we need to be wise as we let go of old ideas and trusting that new possibilities will emerge that are every bit as good and probably better. The real challenge is control. The real challenge is being able to let go of what we know how to do and our smugness and our attachment to it and our arrogance that it is the best idea ever thought of, and realize there's always going to be something better. Finally, things fall apart. It is a death experience. It is the death of old ideas. It is the death of how we have been looking at ourselves individually and collectively. Jonah ends up in the belly of the great fish. A Little Red Riding Hood is in the belly of the wolf. That is, the belly of the beast is being devoured by change, being devoured by our fears. And it would seem, in a rational story, that's the end. That's a tragic end to the story. You've just died. But these are magical stories, or at least they are maps that point us past what we have known how to control. So we have the potential of rebirth. We might come back from this endpoint and have a whole new story to live out. And hopefully we will learn from our previous arrogance and our previous mistakes so that we don't head straight into death again, that perhaps we can set out things that will work a little better. To people who have always seen things a certain way, that one group is better than another group, or things are done a certain way, it feels terrible when these ideas are shaken, but they really must go. We are very slowly and begrudgingly moving a little more toward equality. We don't have as many kings and queens on the planet. We have democracies run by regular people, and we see ourselves close to equal. And yet there's an old hierarchy that dies hard, that is not going away very quickly. And every now and then there's a step back where people will try to reconstitute very old ideas that weren't very good even in their time. So progress is always 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And the fact that there is a reversal does not mean the whole story is over. It's just a temporary setback. It is death-like, though. The people that have had privilege and have to lose some of it feel like they're being cheated. In fact, they've been cheating all along, so the change is toward fairness, but it doesn't feel like that to the person that's losing some advantage. The metaphor of death might involve real death. That is, there might be illness or wars or injury of some kind, but it really represents something dying. It's a view. It's a belief system. It's a certain perspective, and it's for the best. It doesn't feel like that, but later you see that it makes space. The dying makes space for something to be born, something better. There is a moment of empowerment in the mythic journey. It is something that the individual experiences, and we experience in teams and communities as well. It is often pictured as receiving a special weapon or tool, a sword or a new technology. It really represents a new skill, that is a new knowledge. Some kind of wisdom, some kind of understanding that will allow us to build what is called for. And so once we have the weapon, let's call it a sword for symbolic reasons, we are able to slice. That's what a sword does. It cuts. It cuts away the old. It cuts away the problem. A cut is a way of describing discernment. When you cut this away from that, you make very difficult, subtle decisions and choices. And we have big choices to make, both personally and collectively in our times. So gaining a new technology, a new knowledge, is what will help us invent the future. We think of technology as we generally experience it now, our new devices, our new connections, our new ways of communicating and moving around. They are our new swords for our time, with which we can either fight with each other or build something that works better than anything we've had before. On a personal level, the sword is usually additional skill. So you go to school and learn how to do something, and that allows you to hold a different job and make a different contribution, make some money and build a family, do the things that need to be done. So learning is at the core of the entire hero model. It's learning, which is to say changing. And learning is a very frustrating experience. Some people love school. Some people just wonder why anybody would go there. It's so painful. Of course it's painful. It's a sustained experience of feeling stupid. And if you don't feel stupid in school, you're not doing it right, because you're not pushing hard enough. If you read the harder books, finally you've got a book and you open it up and it just says on the page, you are so stupid, which is to say, that's how it feels. And that means I'm pushing myself, I'm challenging, and I'm reaching for my capacity. We want to become as well learned as we can be, as well developed as we are capable of, and that is some struggle. That has certainly got a lot of doubt in it. We're going to be afraid. You cannot do this without fear. You're going to stumble into your own dark places. You're going to struggle with your own demons, all in claiming the sword of effectiveness, of ability. Utility would be the word, the ability to cause something to happen in the world for the better. In The Lord of the Ring, relatively early in the adventure, the mentor Gandalf holds back to fight a monster who would kill the whole team. But he's quite a warrior, as well as being a wise old man, and he allows all of his friends and colleagues to get through the dangerous place there while he fights the fire monster, and loses. Well, I guess mutual. They kill each other. They both die. And we, because we're identifying with Frodo and the others on the team, we go on without our leader, without our teacher, without the wisdom of the previous generation. We have great doubts whether we know enough, because the challenges are great. Later in the story, Gandalf returns. It's a bit of a mystery how he survived and came back. And one little change, his beard is now white, his hair is now white, and he explains, I am no longer Gandalf the Grey, I am now Gandalf the White. Which is to say, everyone changes.
Tap into your time. Put some respect on your transformative
journey will be changing, and the change
what up, my
from
brothers?
to light is kind of a purification, but it is also a gaining of wisdom, and that is what is at play in these stories. If we survive, we should be.
Is your whole life curling beers?
The defeat is horrible. It
Are
feels
you just
like
a
death,
beer
and is usually
curler?
described as a death and rebirth experience. Following that, you have resurrection, redemption, return. These are slow and painful steps.
Do you
But
like
you
to do
realize you're
beers?
still alive, and that you have gained something for your trouble, usually symbolized as a sword, which is you have new tools, new ways of thinking, new kinds of effectiveness to use in the journey ahead, and you begin to take steps and realize you're strong. You are stronger for your trouble. You make new allies. You begin gaining steam here, and there are new problems to be solved. The journey back is every bit as long and taxing as the journey to the depths. The whole thing is quite an ordeal, but we are gaining something, and there is no other way to change. Change is an insulting, grueling experience, but if we want to maximize our potentials, there is no other thing to do. As we realize we are still alive, we begin to return to the game. We return to the place of action. The battlefield, if you take that metaphor, the laboratory, if you're doing research. We get back to our work, but it's not the same person. Same face, same name. Others may not notice any change, and the change may be subtle. It might simply be increased confidence. It might be increased hope or belief that the project is worth doing, but we do better at it. And people look back and say, couldn't I have done this without all of that ordeal? Probably not. There is no other way to get away from the past and its limitations and into the new potentialities. I was the founding curator of the Maria Gimbutas papers. She was the leading scholar on the goddess, and her theory is that some 3,000 years before the Common Era, there was a shift, that there was a matriarchal system socially and a goddess tradition religiously that was the dominant way of seeing things. Things changed, the male gods came, certain more masculine ideas gained dominance. The feminine did not go away, it just didn't have the leading edge anymore. It was still very strong and present, and a little bit underground. There is a notion that perhaps at some point it will shift back. Saying it in Hegelian terms, the feminine would be the thesis, the masculine would be the antithesis, and the synthesis would be an integration of the two. Not a return to the feminine, but the best of both working together in a kind of partnership culture. A popular writer, Rian Eisler, wrote The Chalice and the Blade, a retelling of Gimbutas theories, and it's an interesting perspective on history. We don't have good data. The evidence for the shift 3,000 years before the Common Era is a little sketchy, but something.
Is that chicken and asparagus? That's some good fried chicken.
Who makes this fried chicken?
Who made the fried chicken?
Hey, pass that
to you. Some fried chicken. Eating fried chicken at the mall. Eating fried chicken at the mall. Eating fried chicken with your moms. Eating fried chicken when I lick the pussy. Eating fried chicken when I lick all the groceries out of rest. Eating fried chicken out your mom's ass. Fried chicken, gotta eat my fried chicken. Gotta eat my fried chicken. Gotta eat my fried chicken.
Gotta eat my fried chicken. Gotta eat my fried chicken. Boom, boom. Fried chicken when I read on my Bible. Pew, pew.
Fried chicken when I look at my title. Fried chicken when I'm looking on Google. Fried chicken when I'm going to go scuba diving. Fried chicken when I surf.
Fried chicken when I'm on.
Fried chicken when I go to outer space in the mall. Fried chicken is my life. Fried chicken is my wife.
Fried
Chicken is my dad. Fried chicken is my Gladys. Now you fried chicken.
Woo. Hey, let me pass me the fried chicken, fam. Skit, skit. Hey, give me the barbecue sauce, bro. Fried chicken when I'm looking at the TV.
Fried chicken when I'm watching cartoons. Gotta eat my fried chicken.
Gotta eat my fried chicken.
Gotta eat my fried chicken. Gotta eat my fried chicken. Chicken, fried chicken, fried chicken, fried chicken. Duck, duck, goose, goose, fried chicken. Duck, duck, goose, goose, fried chicken.
Hey, pass me that chicken, fam. I need some more, man. I know it's my third piece, fam.
I need 4 pieces, fam.
Man, better Roscoe, fam. Better Popeye, fam.
Fried chicken is my holy savior. Fried chicken is my holy savior. Fried chicken is my angels. I like my angel wings.
Give me that chicken wings.
I like to eat my chicken wings. Chicken, 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 fried chicken, 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 chicken.
Fried chicken in this bitch.
Fried chicken is my bitch, and fried chicken is my bitch, and fried chicken.
J-Dub!
Dun, 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 dun. I like to play my Wii with my Wii. I like to play with my Wii. I like to play my Wii. I like to play my Wii, my Wii.
Mario! Legends of Zelda. Back before the time, Tetris when I rhyme. Super Mario 64, Metals of the past, Metroid Prime, shoot you on your ass. Pokemon red, blue, and green, yeah, that I mean. Good dinner, eh? Hey, yes, asparagus, tiger meal, and the best one in camel toe. I like to play my Wii with my Wii. 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 Mario. I like to play with my Wii. Donkey Kong. I like to play with my Wii. I like to play my Wii. Mario Galaxy. Mike Tyson punching. WarioWare when I think Smash Bros. Melee F-Zero GX Fire Emblem Awakening Banjo-Kazooie Pokemon GoldenEye 64. I like to play with my Wii. I like to play my Wii. Kirby. I like to play my Wii with my Wii. Wii. I like to play my Wii. Tennis. I like to play my Wii with my Wii. Wii. Advance Wars, Wario Land 4, Metroid Zero Mission, Mario Luigi, that is Super Session, Zelda, Majora with the Pokemon X and Y. Tetris DS when I play it, sipping wine all day. I like to play with my Wii. Kirby. I like to play with my Wii. Star Fox. Kirby and Super Knockout. Mike Tyson. Bam. Wii. Donkey Kong. I like to play with my Wii. I like to play with my Wii. Animal Crossing, Mario 3D, Wii. Playing Wii, all day smoking weed, playing Wii, all day smoking weed. Metro Prime, Remix 2. Animal Crossing Blue.
Whether it's good history or just a notion doesn't in the end matter. It describes a loss of certain values, that they were underplayed and need to come back into balance, and that we know to be true. What we sometimes call the feminine is probably all of the internal values, the value of subjectivity, of emotionality, creativity, the poetic things, the things of beauty and tenderness. They get trampled during times of ambition. This is not unique to men. Any ambitious person is going to push themselves, and they're going to be rough and probably accomplish some things, win, be achieving some things, and then at some point, probably after we've arrive somewhere, we might wonder, what have I missed? What else is there for me? And we go back to some of the things we set aside because they weren't convenient or efficient, or didn't seem like they would help us toward our goals, and begin to bring them back into our definition of ourselves. This is a stage of integration. It's not that we shift values and take a different side. It's more that we try for the holistic perspective. During a time of great growth, a nation might be very instrumental, very productive, a lot of energy put into factories and technology. And then, after we pollute the air a little too much, we might say, weren't there some other things we liked? Walking in the woods, enjoying a lake that wasn't too polluted, that we might go back to trusting nature and beauty and the poetic side of things collectively and find some balance. Not that we tear the factories down, but we build a park next to them. If we survive the ordeals, if we return from the death-like moment, we have something for our trouble, sometimes called the boon or the reward or the elixir. A good word, the elixir. A healing potion, and it's symbolized in some stories as a vial of magical medicine. But it is the wisdom, it is the new way of looking at things that will allow us to solve problems that seemed intractable. This is what we get. And there isn't any other way to get it. It involves a radical and disheveling learning process. The elixir is not the private property of an individual seeker or a group. If some group stumbles on some great idea, They may hold the copyright for a little while, but ultimately it needs to be shared. And the point is collective. The point of the entire initiatory adventure is that we all gain in the new idea, the new elixir that can help. In the large sense, collectively, if we are able to come to the elixir, a new philosophy of living, what we will gain is something like peace. We will find an ability to put up with people who are different from us. We will find an ability on a personal level to put up with the parts of ourselves we've never gotten along with very well. This is enormously important in psychological work on a personal level. So, if we find the elixir, it will be shared. It can be hoarded temporarily, but it will come out. And the advantage is
Morpheus, Orpheus, Origins, Morpheus, Orifices, Boluses, Origins, Tyrosaurus, Warlord, Sword Forces, Dwarf Forces.
Breathe and relax, meditation. I'm one with the universe. I think that piece is done. A Cosby sweater. Why are you wearing the shirt? Blaze it. With the sun and the moon and the planets, I am black, I am mine, I am everything, and I'm nothing. Breathe in, breathe out, meditation. I'm one with the universe. Feel my heart move, feel my soul move, feel my soul move. You feel me, I can feel you. We are one with the sun and the moon and the planets. I am black, I am white, I am everything, and I'm nothing. Ice cream, I love ice cream, ice cream, ice cream, mint chocolate chip, cookie dough. I'm through. Dairy farm ice cream, mint chocolate chip, mint chocolate chip. Calories per serving, calories 30, 30, sodium, carbohydrates, sugar 17 G, dietary fiber 0%, vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, iron, I need, serving size 5 of a lemon, 12 container, ingredients, ice with the cream, ice with the cream. No, man.
ice cream, I love ice cream, ice cream, ice cream. Mint chocolate chip, cookie dough, out the